Hey, my name is Vashlos. Thanks for tuning in today. I will be going over a bit of a showcase, a little bit of a rant slash guide as to how I reached this point with my Ice Trap Low-Life Trickster. And first off, I would like to go over some of the pros and cons. Some of the pros are that it's an amazing bosser. You can really ignore defense as much as you desire, and it's just going to become a better bosser because this skill can shoot to the moon with critical strike. It's an amazing league starter as well. I think that should be noted that this really doesn't need much of anything. Ice Trap just kind of destroys things, especially once you pick up that first trap cluster that starts to give you some power charges. Ice Trap of Hollowness also has a lot going for it compared to regular Ice Trap. Ice Trap of Hollowness has almost, I think it's 60% increased effectiveness of added damage, as well as um, a reduced trap duration. Instead of being 4 seconds, it's 2 seconds, which is just a match made in heaven with Sunblast, the trap belt that lets you throw 2 additional traps per click. And cold damage itself, just when paired with critical strike, also feels like another match made in heaven. So those are the things I would say the build has going for it most. You probably have a wide selection of ways that you can play this build too, from being a low life to chaos inoculation to eldritch battery to where you're energy shield and life hybrid. Um, I feel like there are a great many ways to actually play this build, so don't hesitate in thinking that my way is the only way that you would be able to achieve this character, as there's probably people doing much harder content than I am, with only a few changes, or maybe a great many changes in a completely different direction than I've taken my character. Let's go over some of the cons. Um, Tormented modifiers are really scary with how I've set up my character. I'm a low life, so with the way I've done that, I use a coruscating elixir, which can be taken away from me via tormented modifiers. You have to be very quick at reading whether or not that's the right tormented modifier that is going to immediately kill you. Um, you could be perfectly fine taking chaos damage 1 second, and then the very next, because you chose an altar that adds chaos damage to the monsters within the map, and that monster also decided to have a tormented modifier that gives it a grip, you can just immediately die. As a result, I would say this is not a hardcore viable character. Just inherently, because that can happen, you can just automatically die. I won't recommend that. Don't do that to yourself. It's also kind of a bummer that you can't do Expedition super duper comfy because of the kill things immediately under 20% maximum life. You just get tapped and you immediately die. Kind of a bummer. This, as a result, traps as well. Traps are just not really that great at being a mapper. We excel at being bossers, but as a result, with all these things together, it makes mapping a little bit of a stressful experience. So, not great at mapping. To reach the level that I have reached, which is level 99, I resorted to a strategy one of my viewers cued me into, which is synthesis maps, as tormented spirits cannot spawn there. So I'm throwing away a little bit of trash. As well as a lot of your map modifiers don't apply to those maps because they're unique maps, making for a very safe yet boring leveling process. Um, we're also really not that tanky. I have to resort to quite a few shenanigans, usually corruptions and unique items, to convert a lot of our physical damage over to elemental. This is a very powerful defensive layer, and I'm happy that we're using it. At the same time, though, it feels like it's limiting and expensive. A lot of the unique items we use are expensive. It is overinvestment at a certain point, and you could really just leave this as a bossing character and then choose to have another character that's more well-rounded, intended to be more well-rounded, and most likely more successful at being well-rounded. But yeah, let's go ahead and get on into the more ranty part as to this video. Okay, path of building section. Lightning round. I'm going to do my best to not beat you guys over the head with superfluous information or like, oh, I did this choice for this reason and I thought that this was really cool too. That I could talk all day about that. So if you want to hear me talk about that stuff and you're interested in this build and the different versions that I've come across as I've played it, stop by the stream sometime. I would love to talk to you about all of those things, but I'm gonna make this as succinct as possible. So let's go ahead and get on into the skills. Main skill, it's Ice Trap of Hollowness. It's a transfiguration gem of Ice Trap, and the reason why we choose this is that it has increased effectiveness of added damage and reduced trap duration. Instead of needing a perfect Sunblast with a regular Ice Trap, because regular Ice Trap has 4 seconds duration, we can go with whatever kind of Sunblast we want, and then we're still going to have a really low trap duration. I just wanted to let you know about that. Power charge and critical. Incredibly competitive support gem. The more power charges you get, don't sleep on it. Charge traps. This is a um, crux of the build because with how many charges we gain a lot of trap throwing speed, we gain a lot of critical strike chance, we gain a lot of critical strike multiplier. So you can't take this out of the build. Use charge traps. Empower. Super important. A lot of spells scale off of gem level, and Ice Trap of Hollowness is no different. Awakened added cold damage. It's the same thing. Flat cold damage, gem level. Trap and mine damage. Makes us a little bit slower, but also super duper amount of more damage. Don't sleep on it. It's a lot of damage. Call to Arms and Enduring Cry. This is so that we have additional physical damage mitigation on top of some form of life regeneration rate. We transform that life regeneration rate from Enduring Cry via Zealot's Oath over towards Energy Shield regeneration. Moving on, Bear Trap. This is to slow down really fast monsters and make them take increased damage. Summon Skitterbots. It applies a chill and a shock. The shock makes them take increased damage as well as the chill via Bone Chill. We also include via this Arrogance support gem so that they reserve life, Clarity. Clarity makes us regenerate more mana per second, and that's super important because we're an energy shield based character, which means we can't go Eldritch Battery like most other trappers. Deep breath. Whew. All right, the auras that we use: Purity of Elements, Vol Discipline, Vol Grace. Vol Grace, super important. We need that invasion. It's an avoidance layer. Vol Discipline gives us more life, and then whenever you're in trouble, say you're taking a huge dot, you can just hit Vol Discipline if you've got the Vol Souls available, and that will become much less of an issue. Purity of Elements, this is also super important as a low life character because ailments are very scary. If you start taking a big ignite, well, you're going to be taking damage, and unless you have something like a lot of built-in life regeneration rate and Zealot's Oath, or say you're like an Inquisitor, you're going to want ailment immunity. So we use that. We also have a Lightning Coil in the build, which makes Purity of Elements a lot more alluring as well. Moving on, we use Arcanist Brand and we use 3 curses. Arcanist Brand is using Assassin's Mark, Elemental Weakness, and Frostbite. Assassin's Mark increases the base critical strike chance, critical strike multiplier, and then the other 2 lower their resistances. Shield Charge and Flame Dash are our movement skills. We support Shield Charge with faster attacks, and Flame Dash is alone. You should quality it because it increases the cooldown recovery rate of it. I want to talk to you real quick about Flame Dash and how it can kill you in your maps. If you are not aware, traps are really good for elemental reflect maps, really any kind of reflect map, because the trap is dealing the damage and not you, the player. However, Flame Dash is you, the player, using a skill. So it deals elemental damage, and because we have so much increased spell damage and critical strike chance and so on and so forth, and Flame Dash actually does hit, not just a dot effect, you can kill yourself by using Flame Dash in an elemental reflect map. So if you wanted to replace Flame Dash with anything, I would recommend Dash so that you completely don't have to worry about reflection. But if you do want to use Flame Dash because it is probably a little more comfy than Dash in some cases, just be aware, don't use Flame Dash in your elemental reflect maps as you will blow yourself up. Moving on, I'm going to just go over the items as fast as I can. I'm not going to go over with every single small modifier and you know whether or not you should care about that modifier. So first and foremost, Void Battery. You should enchant it with elemental damage per quality and then corrupt it with a Beastcraft from Einhar, so it's 30%. Malachi's Loop. This is increased power charges and you can corrupt it for physical damage taken as elemental. The Vertex. This is a lot of evasion, a lot of energy shield, chaos resistance. Enemies cannot regenerate or cannot leech mana from you. And then plus the level of Socket of Gems. Really, you get a Vertex. Corrupt it with +1 to maximum power charges. It's super good. Lightning Coil. This is a massive amount of physical damage taken as elemental, which is main defensive layer of the build as I've set it up. You probably are not going to be buying one with double corrupt, increased area of effect gems, and trapper mine gems. This cost me about 35 divine orbs, and that was a cheap one. Every single other one was about 50 divine orbs. Per corrupted modifier that you take away from the one that I have right here, whether it be AoE or trap and mine, each one is about 10% to like 14% DPS, I want to say. So if you can, and if you want to do this, sure, go ahead and do it. But I want you to know this is an overinvestment, and you really don't have to. You're probably going to be best off spending those divine orbs on another build that does something else more efficiently. The gloves, we use these for spell suppression, cold exposure, and unnerve. Everything else is kind of to help out with the other items. Lightning resistance is necessary here, mana regeneration rate, and then energy shield is really what you want with some evasion rating. It has to be a murder mitt. That's the tier 1 dual type base for energy shield and evasion. Relic Hesher's Impatience, super powerful boots, makes it so that you don't have to ramp up with charged traps. You're just always considered at the maximum endurance, frenzy, and power charges. The cold resistance and chaos resistance also comes through more importantly than you may realize. Presence of Chayula, stun immunity, chaos resistance. The attributes are super important, and converting a maximum portion of your life over to energy shield. We love flat energy shield because we struggle to get it in a lot of different places. Since we are using a lightning coil, we can't really do like a sadist's garb like most other tricksters are doing to gain a massive amount of flat energy shield. Moving on, we use a topaz ring to help out with our lightning coil, and that's really about it. We gain a lot of strength, a lot of intelligence, mana regeneration rate, and energy shield. You could also go for a suffix of, instead of intelligence, you could go for critical strike multiplier. But really, the mana regeneration rate, super important. I would not take that away if you plan on doing what I've been doing here. Anathema, we use this to enable our Arcanist brand setup so that per power charge we get an additional maximum curse. That's really all there is to say about it. Gives us intelligence, which is nice, gives us energy shield. Sunblast, this makes it so that we throw 2 additional traps when we throw traps. Fire resistance, and then traps cannot be triggered by enemies. That line specifically does not mean anything to us because of the reduced duration in tandem with Ice Trap of Hollowness. The 3 flasks that we use with a forbidden, not a forbidden jewel, blah, blah, blah. I'm blanking, Brutal Restraint Timeless Jewel. Sorry, we use a Brutal Restraint Timeless Jewel with Balbala so that we gain the Traitor. If you're not familiar with what the Traitor does, you gain 4 flash charges per empty flask slot, which means with 25% increased flash charges gained, you will be at 5 flask charges gained per missing flask slot. It's pretty important so that with 2 missing flask charges you can have 100% uptime on your 3 elemental flasks such as Sapphire, Ruby, and Topaz. Now, one of the new things that I've done is that with 27% quality on a Taste of Hate, you can have 100% increased uptime on this because the magic number, it seems, is 10 seconds and 10.20 seconds. For the Topaz Flask, you'll want increased duration, elemental resistances so that you can hit that breakpoint as well. And then Coruscating Elixir is good as is, just throw some quality on it. And then with Balbala, you will have these up permanently. Coruscating Elixir, what this does for us is it makes it so that chaos damage cannot bypass our energy shield. Super, super powerful flask, especially with the Balbala Flask tech. Now, I want to also let you know that this comes with an immense downside. It makes tormented modifiers just exponentially scarier. You really have to watch out for those because out of nowhere you could run into a Thief's Grip or a Warlord's Grip, or I forget which one it is specifically, but it just rips all of your flasks off. And if you have chosen, say, an altar that you normally wouldn't be scared of chaos damage because of Presence of Chayula and the Vertex, you are now terrified of chaos damage because with that Thief's Grip modifier, or again, I can't really remember which one specifically it is, but with those grip modifiers, all of the things that weren't mistakes before are immediately mistakes. So you have to be painfully aware that that's possible when doing something like this. And you may even see other content creators stray away from using Coruscating Elixir because of such things, or having additional defensive layers against chaos damage taken, such as Ivory Tower. But yes, I digressed a little bit there. I said I wouldn't go over every little thing, but I think that's really important to mention when talking about low life builds that use Coruscating Balbala tech. Going over the jewels, we use 2 large cluster jewels. Really, the only thing that you care about on those is not blanketed snow, but wait, no, yes, blanketed snow. Blanketed snow is the one that gives us cold damage penetration for enemies that are chilled. And the way that you can force that to the bottom is with 3 other notables. You can either choose Doriani's Lesson. What's the other one? You can choose Disorienting Display or Widespread Destruction. Those 3 notables will force Blanketed Snow to the bottom of your large cluster jewel and be one of the first things that you can allocate on it, if you're stressed for passive points, that is. From there, you want Dexterity on a lot of your jewels so that you can have a maximum level Grace, as that's going to be rather important for our defensive layers. Forbidden Flame Jewel, really get any combination that you want and then make sure that you have Polymath. I chose Swift Killer because, again, Frenzy Charges with Charged Traps means faster trap throwing speed. It's just what's not to like. It was one of the cheapest ones as well. Watcher's Eye, this was a gross overinvestment. It is a triple modifier, Watcher's Eye with faster start of energy shield recharge, maximum mana gained as energy shield with clarity, and then physical damage taken as elemental from Purity of Elements. Super, super expensive, but I saw it and I was like, this seems like way cheaper than it should be, so I had to buy it. Small Cluster Jewel, we use this for reservation efficiency, dexterity, and then self-control. It's really nice, it gives us mana regeneration rate as well, which is another center point of the build. It's a large cluster, medium cluster. With the medium cluster, again, more attributes, dexterity or owl attributes is fine. And then guerrilla tactics for the trap throwing speed. It's just really, it's guerrilla tactics is an extremely efficient node, and you should pick it up whenever you can. Brutal restraint, we already went over that. You want one that gives you 20% increased flash charges gained. You get 10% here, and you get 10% here. And you can also put it up here by Hexmaster and get that 20% via Instability or Deep Thoughts. Now, you don't need a Brutal Restraint that does this. You can just take 2 passive points and put them here instead on the way towards Careful Conservationist, and you'll be totally fine. It's the exact same thing, but if you want to save those 2 passive points, then that's what I would recommend that you do. Moving on, Hypnotic Eye Jewel. This is just for Corrupted Blood immunity, energy shield. You can get some fire damage here if you want to get like a baseline scorch going on when you critical strike. And then an important modifier that you should pay attention to when using traps and Hypnotic Eye Jewels is increased critical strike chance if you haven't dealt a critical strike recently, because you are not your traps. Your traps deal the critical strike, but you don't. So you still get the benefit from that modifier, as do the traps, because they're gone after they've dealt it. Thread of Hope, this is just to save some passive points, and yeah, we save about, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 5 passive points that we save. So not a ton, but I was feeling really stressed for passive points, and this helped me solve that a little bit. The Interrogation, this is really important in my opinion, because it allows us to apply 5 ailments. Instead of applying Ignite, Shock, or Freeze, we apply Scorch, Brittle, Sap. Scorch, Brittle, Sap. Scorch is lowering of resistances. Brittle is increasing of critical strike chance, and then Sap is reducing of damage dealt. With Brittle, we nearly cap our critical strike chance without much more investment than we already have. With Scorch, we want as much of it as we can, but it's not really going to come through as powerfully as the Brittle. But what's nice about this is that the Interrogation does not transform the ailments applied by our Skitterbots. So we still get to apply Chill, we still get to apply Shock, and we still get to apply all those other ailments that are transformed via Secrets of Suffering. So super fun tech that I found by perusing other people's builds in Path of Exile Ninja. But they didn't use the Cluster Jewel. They used a, I forget what it's called, alternating scepter, alternating rod. I can't remember what it is, but it comes from Heist, and it basically does the exact same thing, but as a scepter implicit. Pretty cool. An important notable that I should mention is this intelligence one, as 5 strength per allocated mastery passive skill actually really does help out quite a lot, and it makes the strength requirement on your ring a lot more achievable, and that's if you care about the strength in the first place. If you don't care about any strength skills, you could obviously just take that mastery away and put it in somewhere more useful. We pick up Zealot's Oath. We pick up Pain Attunement for more damage. And we pick up basically every charge that is available to us. The Dexterity is necessary. On your way to leveling, you can pick up Charisma. You can pick up Mage Bane. There's a lot of different pathings that you could honestly try out that help you solve different steps of the build. You can path through this life and energy shield if you would like, and give up an additional mastery. But all in all, I would say I'm kind of disappointed in the build because it's not really the best at farming tier 17 maps, which is like, I mean, tier 17 maps is like 3.24 the patch, right? If you're not doing tier 17 maps, I feel like I'm obsolete almost. It's not that this can't do Maven, it's not that this can't do bosses, right? I can even go into tier 17s and I can get it done, but I don't feel efficient. I don't feel like I'm designed to do tier 17s as this build. And as a result, I find myself yearning to start a new build sometime soon. But I wanted to tell you guys about this. All in all, I wouldn't recommend this. It's really expensive. This is just kind of how I like to play the game. I like pushing a character to the point as to where I feel like there aren't that many more decisions I can make that interest me, and then I move on. Sometimes I hit level 100, sometimes I don't. We hit level 99. The only skill point that we're missing is this trap mastery right here for additional traps placed at a time. And the most recent one that I put in was this increased critical strike multiplier per maximum energy shield on your shield. But this is extremely, excuse me, I got trapped burp. This is an extremely larger success than my original attempt this league, which was a melee build. For double strike, it was completely awful. I knew it was going to be mean, but I didn't expect to suffer that much. So we rolled over towards this ice trapper, and it was just so much more fun. We still had a bunch of hurdles to jump over, and it's still not the build I think I'm going to be landing on as my forever home for this patch. But I've definitely enjoyed my time spent. And I'm probably going to leave it as a bosser in all honesty. I think that it does that job really well. But I was going a little crazy for a bit trying to hit level 100 because it's slow and sometimes you have to go out of your way to get that experience. Like I said, I was doing the synthesis strategy to where it's a unique map and you can't have tormented spirits spawn in there, so there's really not all that much risk. But you can still die. I mean, I had one that rolled like 300% increased physical gained as elemental, and then like 20% elemental penetration with those same modifiers, and it's like, oh, that's different. Um, but yeah, ultimately, I would say the build came up short of my expectations. But as far as a low life character goes, I would say this is one of my favorite attempts because I feel like I was able to solve most all of my problems besides survivability. And really, with a trapping character, I don't know if that should have ever been my concern in the first place. Like I said, it's really a bossing character, and I guess a lot of my choices feel as though I've been trying to make it into an all-rounder. At some point, I feel like I should accept that that's not really how the game is played, but I just find it so fun. I can't help but find it fun trying to make the build work, regardless of what I'm playing, right? Like, I just want to make it work, and I want to make it work in as many facets of the game as I possibly can. So, yeah. And I think that does it. Thanks for tuning in. You guys are awesome. You have no idea how much each and every view, follow, subscribe, comment, anything, really. You guys have no idea how much it actually means to me. You're literally putting food on the table for me sometimes, so thank you. And I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something that you may be interested in trying out with one of your future builds. Or maybe I hopefully have encouraged you to just be a little more brave with your experiments and unafraid of failure. Sometimes it just doesn't really work out the way that we think it will, but it doesn't mean the journey isn't fun. So buy the ticket, take the ride. Other than that, I hope that you will stop by my Twitch channel sometime. I stream every single day, every single afternoon, usually for about 7 hours, starting at 7 p.m. EST. I like to give people a heads up in the Discord channel, which I will also be leaving down below in the description, so that you too can become part of the community. I think that does it though. I'll quit bugging you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Maybe on the next build. Peace out, and stay safe in raid class, everybody.
Crossing lines, cap don't get you cut, killed. One up in my gonna get drilled. D4's dark shit face my gap. Made of racks, they spending that. The man them suited and ready to crash. D4's done this in the trash. D4's dog shit, give me a cue. Look at me uninstalling new. The man them ready outside the flat. D4's cooked, no one wants than that.